Zululand's Rhino Warriors is brought to you by
DS Arms,
Advanced Weapon Systems, Divad Civilian Defense, the Game Changer Anti-Poaching Foundation, Vortex Optics, Rhino Air, ESS Eyewear, Brothers in Arms, Rotozen Helicopters, and Saving Private Rhino. Previously on Zululand's Rhino Warriors.
We were called to help with darting the blue wildebeest. I had the unique and rare opportunity. Dr. Triegaardt has invited us with and given us permission to film it. Whoa. We just managed to dart 3 blue wildebeest. So the problem we have is that there are 3 white rhino right behind us.
Let's go, son. Let's go. Let's go, let's go, let's go.
Yeah, it's definitely a little nerve-wracking with rhinos so close. You know, they're used to the vehicles, but as soon as you get out on foot, you know, they want to charge you. So you got to have one eye over your shoulder, and then I also didn't know what the reaction to the wildebeest falling down around it would be. So it's so far so good.
We've got different groups of cows we're going to put with a bull. So we would like to know that a certain tag belongs to a certain group of cows and a different color belongs to another group of cows. So that if we get golden calves from one group, we're going to stick with that group and breed from them. So that's why we're tagging them. Thank you. Hold on, let me.
1, 2, 3, up. Sorry, what first? Up first. Up first.
All right, we just got the 3rd wildebeest loaded, or we're trying to, and we're going to transport them to the farm where they're going to be put in the enclosure. So the vet's just giving the final injections now. And in the meantime, we've now got a bunch of eland that have crept up on us. That's pretty cool.
Pretty cool. Put that in for us, the tag, please. Help, lady gun, help from the outside.
So while we were working with the wildebeest, a herd of eland basically crept up to us. They don't seem to disturbed in any way, but it is a large animal at this distance. Trying to find their way out right now. Yeah, this one's up. We've got one coming out the back. There she goes. Yeah. All right, we just got the last wildebeest out. Sun's going down. We wanted to get them in the field before it got dark, so when they know their surroundings. So, successful venture. I'm fortunate enough today to be talking to Dr. Triegaardt. Dr. Triegaardt is a veterinarian, and he actually was the vet that responded to the tragic incident here at the Aquila Game Reserve. Can you just tell me a little bit about that day, because that was the first time that it ever happened, correct?
First time it's ever happened in the Western Cape. So it was all a very big new tragedy incident that day. Got called early morning, 6, 7 o'clock, and rushed out to the reserve, and not to expect or not to know what to expect and to see and to experience on arrival. And when we got here, unfortunate, 2 rhino were dehorned and poached. 1 alive, 1 dead. So you can imagine the rush, adrenaline rush, the chaos, where are the poachers? Is it safe to go on the reserve? Are there any more rhino being poached?
Can you describe the kind of actions you took to try and save the rhino?
The main thing is to determine how severe the injuries are, and if it is still savable. There are a few things to look at. Determine the degree of the blood loss, determine the degree of dehydration, determine the degree of injuries.
And how bad were they?
Severely bad. You can imagine hacking with an axe the horn out of the skull. A lot of blood loss. You can imagine the animal in shock, crying. And then, you know, you want to move or handle this massive animal and try and get it into a position where it's pain-free, stress-free, reverse the dehydration. So it's a big thing for a vet to come and organize everybody and still pay attention to the animal.
So there were quite a few challenges to that. Now, these animals had been darted with chemical M99, is that correct?
They normally use etofine, which is an opioid, which is extremely dangerous for animal and human. And the rhino is extremely sensitive to that drug. And the reason they use it is because it's not noisy. So they don't go in with a rifle and shoot the animal, because then everybody will hear it. So they go and they dart, because that's the less noise. And then they wait until the animal goes down, and that gives them enough, more than enough time to axe the wound.
And the animal's powerless to do anything at that point?
Absolutely. This massive 2-ton animal lie there, and you can do anything with it. It's sort of a deep general anesthetic that the animal is under.
Now, another thing that I learned is that each time this drug is purchased, it actually comes with an antidote. Is that correct? Why do the poachers not maybe administer the antidote? I know that's kind of silly asking a question like that, but you know, you would think it's a renewable resource for them.
You can't buy M99 without the antidote. But you know, I think the poacher is so it has got no feeling for the animal. So, you know, why should it wake the animal up? It just comes, takes what it wants to get out of the animal and leave it. You know, they've got no heart for this animal, so why should they wake it up?
That's a horrific way to die, being hacked to death. That drug is fairly well controlled, or is it accessible on the black market? And if it is on the black market, where are they getting it from? Are they getting it from importing it, or is it local?
No, this drug is definitely available, I would say, on the black market. It is imported, and it takes about 11 stages from the poppy seed, the opioid, from the poppy seed until it's available to dart the animal. And it takes about a year to go through all those processes. So I'm sure they get it somewhere on the black market, and unfortunate, there are professional people involved in selling this drug under the table.
There must be a lot of money in it for them if they're selling it.
Lots of money. Lots of money. And that's why they do it, is that they don't care whether that animal is going to die or not, as long as they make their money out of the M99.
Doctor, we were talking earlier, and you know, I mentioned a couple of solutions that people have offered me. One of them was cutting off the rhino horn, and you brought up some really good points I didn't even think about. Can you just elaborate quickly why that's just a very bad idea?
I think there are two reasons where I think it's a bad idea. I think socially it's going to damage the animal itself, because it can't defend itself without a horn. It can't mate properly without a horn. I think it's going to have a negative influence in the social of this animal, in the social behavior of this animal. It's also very costly to dehorn the rhino horn. You've got to do it every 3 years, because it grows to about half to 3/4 the length in 3 years. So once you've dehorned it, after 3 years, you've got to go and do it again. So it's very costly to do it.
And you also mentioned it's very risky for the rhino because they're very susceptible to the drug, and you actually have a fairly high mortality rate when you
There's
dart
a
the
huge
rhino.
risk in doing it, yeah. The other incident is that they caught 2 poachers the other day in South Africa, where they actually killed a dehorned rhino, and their motivation of doing that is that they tracked this spoor, and after 1 to 2 hours they got to the rhino and saw it was a dehorned one. So they wasted their time, their effort, their energy, so they killed it anyway, because they said tomorrow they might get on the same spoor, get to the same rhino and waste time. So the dehorned rhinos, they poach as well now, or they kill as well now.
Yeah, because now they have to, they don't know what they're tracking the
Exactly.
next day. That's very interesting.
Yeah.
The other thing people have said to me, hey, why don't we legalize the sale of rhino horn? Do you have an opinion on that?
I've got an opinion on that. I think if you legalize rhino horn, you will stimulate the black market. At the moment, it's a supply and demand, but demand and supply. If there's not enough to supply, but if you supply more, you're going to stimulate more people to use it. I don't think it's going to work.
Okay,
That's my personal opinion.
Yeah, I've had a lot of people saying, like legalize drugs, but one of the good things about rhino horn, at least it's not addictive. Do you have any other insights on what could be effective in trying to save the rhino, really?
They started also dyeing the horn, to put color dye in the horn, make it a blue horn or a red horn. And that seems to work. Since they've been doing that started doing that about a year ago, only 2 of those rhinos have been poached, the others not. So it seems like that has got an effect. But our thing still is to train people to do the right thing, to save the rhino in combating, and to have trained or people that protect the animal on reserves in the Kruger Park. I think that's the way to go.
Zululand's Rhino Warriors is brought to you by
DS Arms,
Advanced Weapon Systems, Divad Civilian Defense, the Game Changer Anti-Poaching Foundation, Vortex Optics, Rhino Air, ESS Eyewear, Brothers in Arms, Rotozen Helicopters, and Saving Private Rhino.
Briefly describe the main points that you learned and kind of the action plan that Private Rhino and you put in your training classes.
I think it's extremely important to train people to do the right thing at the right time. And as I said, if a poaching incidents happen, everybody is in an adrenaline rush. It's an emotional thing. People don't think straight. So I think on the training classes, it's a basic first aid training we do, is to say, you go in, you evaluate the animal, you do estimate the severity of the wounds, the trauma, the blood loss, the dehydration, so that you can brief the vet when he arrives in what degree of shock and state this animal is.
The other thing you mentioned, that learning from this, there's a different kind of antidote you need to give a rhino like this in this case. Not the M99 antidote, but something else. Can you just briefly mention that?
There's an antidote that we give in the vein called naltrexone, and that's an antidote that you can use and dart the animal again the next day if necessary, to treat some more wounds or to give it more IV fluids. Where the M99 has got an antidote called M5050. Once you've given that, you can't dart it again because it stays in the system too long. So naltrexone we use as an antidote. Once you get on the scene, you've got 1 hour to treat this animal. After an hour, you must get it on its feet. So within that hour, you've got to treat the wounds, make sure it's not dehydrated, put 20 to 40 liters of saline fluid in the vein, drip it, make sure it's pain-free, give it an breathe or oxygen enhancing drug called butorphanol. That's what we inject to make them breathe better, because the M99 suppresses their breathing rate. So they go into an hypoxia state, which damage the muscle, and you get a systemic acidosis in this animal.
Doctor, also there's a lot of other stuff that you give the rangers when you do these training classes. Can you just quickly touch on some of the things that you think are important?
Look, I think it's important if you go onto the crime scene or the poaching scene, it's important to look at the forensic evidence around the rhino, like cigarettes, footprints, rifle cartridges, obviously the dart, the angle the dart went into the animal. So those are all evidence of tracing the poacher at the end, because we want to get hold of him as well. And to take blood, these are the tubes we use to take blood from the animal as evidence.
You also mentioned taking a DNA sample for tracking to prove that horn came from that rhino.
Yeah, you've got to take a DNA sample, some hair or a piece of skin from the rhino to make sure that it meets the DNA of the horn if you get hold of the poachers. The main thing is the animal. You know, you want to save the animal, but there are also just important things around the animal to look at and to consider.
Just on going back to that tragic day, how did that whole incident make you feel personally as a veterinarian?
You see, I think as a veterinarian we take lots of things for granted in wildlife or in the beautiful nature, in the beautiful country we stay in. And if you get onto a scene like that, it makes you humble. It actually is for vets, it's a very emotional incident, because you're here to save this animal's life, and it's very hard for me to understand in what state the animal lies there in front of you and the reason for them to do it.